Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I'm sharing another what I eat in a day as a vegan. I made some creamy nut butter banana porridge for breakfast this day, and as a heads up, this makes 2 portions because it's not just me working from home at the moment. I first filled a medium pan with 3 cups of boiling water and added in a pinch of salt. I then added a cup of porridge oats, but a quarter at a time, stirring in between. Once I'd added all of the oats to the pan, I brought it to a gentle boil, then reduced the heat, gave it a stir, and then left it to cook with the lid on for 20 minutes. Meanwhile, I mashed up a banana in a bowl until it was as smooth and creamy as possible. Then at this point, the oats had fully absorbed all of the water and were thick and creamy. I then poured in a cup of oat milk. I'm currently trying this one from Minor Figures and I really like it. I added the mashed banana to the pan along with a sprinkle of coconut sugar and also a quarter of a teaspoon of cinnamon, and then continued to stir it for another 5 minutes to keep it warm through and to combine everything well, and again so that it was nice and creamy. I then also took another banana for each bowl of porridge and sliced that up into thick slices. I then brushed a separate frying pan with a little coconut oil, added in the sliced banana one at a time and fried them until they caramelised on both sides and were looking delicious. I then added a handful of flaked almonds into the pan and just turned them through what was left of the oil to toast them off a little. I served up the porridge. I'd mixed 2 tablespoons of maple syrup with 2 tablespoons of almond butter until it was smooth and creamy and created this kind of caramel sauce. And I spooned some of that on top, then added on the caramelised banana and almonds as well as the rest of the maple nut butter drizzle. This is my new favourite way to make porridge without yogurt. This is the ultimate creamy porridge. I usually like adding some vegan yogurt into my porridge for the creaminess, but I didn't have any, so this was a great alternative to the way that I usually make it. Adding in the mashed banana also makes it quite creamy and sweetens it, as does the caramelised bananas on the top. These are just my favourite porridge topping, and the maple and almond butter drizzle is also so incredible. It tastes like a caramel sauce and it was amazing on top of this. Later for lunch, I made us some tomato, bean and basil soup. I just heated up a couple of tablespoons of oil in a large pan to start with. I then roughly chopped up a white onion and added that in with the oil. I next sliced up 3 cloves of garlic, added those into the pan as well, and then just cooked the onion and the garlic down on a medium heat until they softened. I next trimmed a red pepper, sliced it up and then cut it into smaller pieces, only roughly as this would all get blended up anyway, and then I added that to the pan too. I allowed the pepper to soften down with the onion and the garlic, cooking it for around 10 minutes or so, before then adding in a teaspoon of dried mixed herbs, a teaspoon of paprika and a tablespoon of tomato puree. Then I just stirred those through the pan and fried everything off in the paste for another minute or so. I next added in a can of whole plum tomatoes. This is a great cheat way of making tomato soup. I find a can of good quality tomatoes can make a really good tomato soup. I added those into the pan, rinsed out the can and poured in the extra juice. Then just using the spoon, I broke up the tomatoes roughly to help them mix through everything else. I also then added in a can of cannellini beans, which I'd rinsed and drained. I crumbled in a vegetable stock cube and then I poured in 500 millilitres of water, gave it a good pinch of salt and then also added in some black pepper to season. I gave that a good stir through until it began to thicken slightly. I then brought it to a gentle simmer and left it on a low heat for 25 minutes. After that, I then transferred it all to my Vitamix blender. You could use a hand blender, a food processor, or even eat this as a chunkier soup if you don't have any of those. Once it was all in the blender, I then cut some fresh basil. My basil plant was on the way out and needed using up, so this is a great soup for that. I cut the basil at the base of the stem so that I could also chop up the stems to add in. There's no point in wasting these as they have so much flavour too. I added almost a whole small basil plant in total, and then I just blended that up until it was nice and creamy and smooth. I added the soup back to the pan just to warm it through again, and then I also added in a tablespoon of red wine vinegar to finish. Although there's the acidity from the tomatoes, the vinegar just gives it a little tang as well as some sweetness. I gave it one last good stir through, and then we served that up at the table for lunch. These were quite small bowls, so we just kept kind of topping them up. Though there was still some left over, which I put in a jar in the fridge, and this tastes even better the next day. I'd saved some mixed seeds which had fallen off my bread in the bag, and I sprinkled those on top of the soup with some more basil, and we also had some rye bread topped with some vegan pesto to eat with it. Look how creamy and smooth the soup is. The white beans make it so creamy, and you could use any white bean for this. Butter beans would probably work really great as well. I love adding canned coconut milks to soups usually to give them some creaminess, but this is a great way to pack in some extra protein with a very similar end result. The texture of it is amazing. As I said, using tinned tomatoes in this is a great way to still make tomato soup even if you don't have any fresh tomatoes at the moment. This is freezeable, and as I said, if you can make this up and then leave it for a day for the flavours to mingle, it tastes even better. Later on in the afternoon, I made an oat milk matcha latte. I used the ice cream flavoured matcha from Bird and Blend, and I also had one of these new Trek salted caramel protein flapjacks. I cannot get enough of these. Trek protein flapjacks are one of my favourites, as you know, but this new salted caramel flavour is so good. I've shown how I make my matcha lattes in plenty of videos before, but I just whisked 2 scoops of the powder with a little milk to make a paste, heated up some oat milk, and then frothed it up and poured it into the matcha paste, then gave it a good stir. I also like to sprinkle some more matcha powder over the top. It just gives even more flavour, and this ice cream flavoured matcha is amazing. It tastes just like ice cream. The Trek flapjacks have 9 grams of protein. They're great as a little something in the afternoon after a workout, or if you just fancy something sweet. The flapjacks are a little bit crunchy but equally really chewy, and the salted caramel layer on top is actual heaven. Then for dinner that evening, I made a lentil tikka masala. I first added around a tablespoon of turmeric coconut oil to a large pan and melted that down. I then added in some of my tikka masala curry paste. I use around 2 tablespoons of this at a time, and the recipe for this is in a very recent video which I will link. I just fried that off in the oil until it heated through and softened down. I was just going to make a lentil curry, but then I decided to sneak some veg in, so I peeled and finely chopped up a carrot. I added that to the pan with the curry paste. Then I also took another red pepper. I currently have very limited veg in my fridge, but red pepper is an amazing source of vitamin C, and again I just finely chopped that up into small pieces so that it would blend in well with the lentils, and I added that to the pan. I fried the carrot and the red pepper off in the pan for around 10 minutes until they had also cooked down and softened and were well coated in the curry paste. I next added in a can of chopped tomatoes and rinsed out the juice into the pan. I didn't have any coconut milk, but I did make 300 millilitres of coconut milk from coconut milk powder mixed with water. This is such a good cupboard essential. And then I poured that into the pan and also added in a cup of rinsed and drained red lentils. I then seasoned it with a good pinch of salt and some black pepper. Then I gave everything a good stir through until it was all nicely mixed together well. I increased the heat to bring it to a gentle simmer, and I left that to cook for around 25 minutes until the lentils were tender. I made a side salad to go with the curry, again just to pack in some more veg. I first halved up a handful of cherry plum tomatoes, then chopped up a quarter of a cucumber, sliced up a red onion as well as a chilli. I wanted this to have a little bit of heat to it, so I left the seeds in. And then I also chopped up a bunch of fresh mint. I added everything to a mixing bowl along with a good drizzle of olive oil. I grated in the zest of around half a lime, and then I cut it in half and squeezed in the juice of half the lime. I also added in a handful of chopped peanuts, a tablespoon of red wine vinegar, then around a teaspoon of ground cumin and some salt and black pepper. I then just mixed that all together well, and then just place that in a serving bowl to go on the table. At this point the lentils were cooked through and the sauce had reduced and thickened slightly. I would usually add some fresh coriander at this point, but I only had a little bit left, so I kept that to go on the top. I had also cooked some brown rice meanwhile to go with this, so I served that up in the bowls first. Then I put in a handful of fresh spinach just to pack in some greens. Then I spooned in the lentil curry. We had around half of this, so this recipe easily serves 4, and again it's also freezeable. I then garnished it with some sliced red onion and chilli that I'd reserved from the salad, and also the fresh coriander that I had. Since it was a Friday, we had a bottle of wine with our curry. Vegan Vino have kindly sponsored this segment of today's video. All of their wines are vegan friendly, are certified by the Vegan Society, and are Portuguese wines from the Alentejo region. Most wine is not vegan, and that is to do with the fining process and how the wine is clarified. Some fining agents used are gelatin, milk protein, egg whites, and isinglass, aka fish bladder protein. Yeah, I don't know a lot about wine, but I know I like to drink it, and I don't fancy any of that used to make it. So this was their Barranco white wine, which is a blend of 3 different Portuguese grape varieties. It has notes of tropical and citrus fruits, mixed with notes of green vine. It's a well-balanced and rounded wine with a beautiful freshness, and it's really lovely paired with Asian dishes, sushi, and also grilled food. So I'm thinking some nice grilled vegetables would be delicious with this too. Vegan Vino's wine production is also very earth friendly. For instance, no pesticides are used on the crops, and their methods also save precious water. Vegan Vino have also given me a discount code for all of you. You can get £15 off your order with code JessBeautician, and I'll leave a link to their website in the top line of the description box below. The wine was so nice with the curry and helped to carry all of the flavours and the spices that were in the tikka masala paste, but also the fresh salad too. The curry itself was so good. I love making this tikka paste. It's so flavourful, and you could use it with anything. I showed it in my recent video with some chickpeas, which is amazing, but some cube tofu and loads of veg as a vegetable curry would work lovely as well. The salad with it was also really nice. It had some freshness. It was just a nice homemade fake away curry on a Friday night with a good glass of wine. And then for dessert after dinner, I had one of the salted caramel choc pots from the Coconut Collaborative. I've probably mentioned their choc pots before, which I love, but I've only recently tried the salted caramel flavoured ones. These are like little chocolate coconut pudding pots. These ones obviously have that salted caramel goodness too, and they are just really good. That's it for another day on my plate. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, all of the recipes are written in the description box below the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!